Welcome in, everybody, to the CFB Nation All-America podcast. I'm Bill Trocchi, senior editor at sportingnews.com, alongside Bill Bender, our national college football writer at sportingnews.com, and the president of the Football Writers Association of America. We're coming to you live on our CFB Nation YouTube channel again. Thanks to Brian Driscoll over at Irish Breakdown for setting it up for us. If you want to subscribe, just go over to YouTube, search CFB Nation, and click subscribe. We would love that. We're going to try to build our audience as we go through the season here. Bill, I told you when I put my Wimbledon hat away in the summertime, I said the next time I get my U.S. Open hat, week 0 is going to be here. U.S. Open had their mixed doubles the last 2 days. The tournament kicks off for real on Sunday. The hat's on. That means week 0 is here.
Yeah, it's super exciting, man. You get into real college football. I mean, we've got a ton of preseason content, obviously, at Sporting News, but at a certain point, you give the same speeches over and over again. Now we get to see it on the field, and I like the Dublin opener. You know, I've been on some hits this week where people don't think it's football or don't think it's true to the.
Oh, it's football.
It's fun, and I think it when you have a kind of a at least high stakes opener like this for both teams, it definitely adds to the allure of that game. And I think with these two teams, it's going to be a lot of fun.
It's going to be great. And so we are going to break down week 0. There's more than just the Kansas State-Iowa State game on Saturday. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the Heisman race. We're going to talk about ranking the transfer QBs, a couple of pieces that you worked on this week at sportingnews.com. Before we get to our week 0 preview, I've got some Trocchi trivia for you. I'm going to ask you at the beginning of the show. We will revisit at the end of the show. You say you like the week 0 game, the Dublin game, the biggest game of week 0. I got a trivia question for you. Can you name the starting QB for each of the last 4 Premier Week 0 winners? Okay. So 24, 23, 22, and 21. Can you name the starting QB for each of the last 4 Premier Week 0 game winners? First 3 were in Dublin. And then
so like last year would have been 20. So I just got to get it to 21, right?
21. The last 4. It was Dublin. And then it was, I'll give you a hint. It was a Big Ten game on a home field in 21.
Oh, I remember that game.
So
now
I figured you would. I figured you would. So we will get into that. But first, let's talk week 0. All right, we've got now I don't have the rankings in front of me. I know it is number 17, Kansas State, -3 versus number 22, Iowa State, 12 o'clock on ESPN. I can't wait, Bill. So I got to tell you, I had a tennis match last night, and it rained in the second set. The only time everyone can make it back up, 11 a.m. Saturday morning. However, we won the first set 6-0, and it was 1-1 in the second set. If we can polish them off in the first 30, 45 minutes, I might be able to make kickoff at noon on Saturday. So we'll see. We'll see about that. We'll putting pressure on ourselves. So Kansas State, Iowa State. Iowa State won this game last year. They beat Kansas State 29-21. Rocco Beck threw 2 touchdown passes. Avery Johnson threw 3 touchdown passes. It was back and forth the whole way. K-State never led, but it was close. And then Iowa State's defense kind of dominated the fourth quarter to secure the win. I got a little bonus Trocchi trivia for you.
Mm-hmm.
Iowa State went 11-3 last year.
Correct.
Can you name the 5 power conference teams that won more games than Iowa State? Only 5 teams won more games than Iowa State.
Man, we're just firing away today. Yeah, I think they better be playoff teams, I would hope. That's a good pull, though. So this game is interesting for a couple reasons. We can talk about Rocco Beck and Avery Johnson for sure. Rocco Beck, one thing you're going to hear the announcer say over and over and over again is, well, Iowa State lost 2 receivers that had 1,000 yards. And since we're just firing trivia at each other today, the only other team that had 2 1,000-yard receivers last year was Ohio State.
And they won the national championship.
And they did all right. So, it's very interesting there. I like Rocco back a lot. He doesn't make a lot of mistakes. I like that they have both running backs back. Those guys were very effective in last year's game, Carson Hansen, Abu Sama. And then Kansas State, I just feel like I feel like you and I talk a lot on the side about Kansas State, because when I watch them sometimes, like, man, they're the best team in the country. And then other times I'm like, they don't look like they know how to play football. So the BYU game would be the best example of that.
And it starts with Avery Johnson, because he's up and down out there. Sometimes you watch him and you're like, what am I seeing? What is the hype? And then other times he has a really good game and he flashes that ceiling that he's got.
It's very interesting. So can they protect the football in this game? They turned it over twice last year. They lose by 1 score. Iowa State's won 3 of the last 4. You got good coaches. I always wonder in the Dublin game who kind of settles in first. That's always the question. It takes a minute. Like last year, I was waiting for Florida State to be like, okay, they're going to win here. I was waiting for DJU to just make a couple plays and they would overtake the game, but they didn't. So I think
Georgia Tech just played keep away.
Correct. And I think these two teams play a similar style. They want to run the ball first. They kind of want to be grimy on defense. They've got a lot of grimy defensive players. If you haven't watched Austin Romaine play for Kansas State, pretty good. So, and the line's tricky. I don't know if it'll move more, but it's been around like 3 and it's bumped up to 3.5 in some places. So I guess the feeling is Kansas State's going to win this game. But that's shortchanging that Iowa State program we're talking about. So I think it's a 1-score game either way. One of the things I wish maybe you could tell me of these last 4 games you're talking about, how many were 1-score games? How many were tight? I think most of these games have been tight, except for, Notre Dame Navy obviously wasn't a tight game.
Right. So you went with Kansas State covering, but you feel like the spread, the line is an accurate one. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think they will. But if it gets up to like 4, I'd probably take Iowa State to cover. Just to be said, probably alter that line a little bit. I didn't know if we were picking or saving our pick for.
We'll save it
for the end. If we're like starting our contest with a 1-pointer or something, but I think it'll be tight. I think it's 1 possession game. I got it a little bit lower scoring too, which again, you just never know because they're over in Dublin and you don't know how 18 to 21-year-olds are going to respond to that environment. Would this game be better if it was in Ames or Manhattan? Probably. But, it wouldn't, I don't think it'd be as exciting. And I think it's
great experience
for these guys. Exactly.
Great experience for these guys and the schools. And, they're taking over the town. The Dublin really embraces the whole thing. The mayor or whatever the equivalent of mayor is gets involved in everything. Because my daughter actually went over last year with Georgia Tech and experienced all the hoopla on the days leading up to the game. It was a great experience for everybody. So, once in a while, you can give up a home game, even if it's a conference game. And I think everybody appreciates the opportunity to experience something new. The 5 teams I mentioned that won more games than Iowa State, Ohio State, Penn State, Oregon, Notre Dame, Texas. So they had a pretty good season last year. Best season in school history. They had never won double-digit games before. Forget about 11 games. They'd never won 10. They had lost 10 several times, 5 times, in fact. But this was the first double-digit win season that Iowa State is coming off of. And it does. It sets the tone. The last few Dublin games have set a little bit of a tone. Florida State, of course, went in the dumper last year. Notre Dame had a pretty good season the year before that. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be worth tuning into. And we're finally going to have some real college football to talk about after a summer of writing about it, discussing it, going to media days, and all of that stuff. So, yes. So the last word, you're saying Avery Johnson throws a touchdown pass in the last play of the game to win it for Kansas State. Is that your prediction? Oh, you're on mute. You slipped your on mute for a second there.
Oh, sorry. I didn't want. Brian Driscoll tells me not to type on podcasts, so I'm listening to him if I'm typing and looking something up. I need a second computer, obviously. No, I think Kansas State's going to win a close one here. And, to our listeners, Carl Kramer saying, it only makes sense with Notre Dame is in Dublin. I kind of agree with that. Like, it looks right when Notre Dame's over there. When they've played Navy, and they've done it a few times, I believe. I think they did. My memory might be shot, but like I think like Everett Golson played over there or something, maybe one year. And I like it when they're over there, but I also remember I think Penn State played over there one year against UCF. It's fun. Like
Boston College, big Catholic environment over there for them.
Yeah. So like, and it's a Catholic thing, and I'm Catholic, and I'm all about that. Like, I think it's awesome. It would be awesome to go cover this game. I know, talking with Steve Sipple, Nebraska beat writer, good friend, he had a blast when they did it a couple years ago. So, it's a great experience, like I said, for the kids that they get to play over there. I don't know if we need to see Michigan and Western Michigan and Munich, Germany next year. I know that's been reported, and when they could just, travel the 1 hour, maybe match Michigan up with somebody else if you're going to do that. But yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. And I think it'll set the tone for that week 0, which, by the way, also features a couple decent games. I have my first upset alert of the year. I do think.
Let me lay it on me. Let's go.
I got Stanford over Hawaii.
Okay.
Ben Gulbranson, the Oregon State transfer. I think, maybe it was because I was around Andrew Luck a little bit at ACC kickoff, and I just, feel the energy around that program a little bit with Frank Reich. But I think Stanford wins their opener and that'll be another one where you're like, wait, that's Frank Reich. What's he doing out there? Old Eagles coach getting it done.
Yeah, for 1 year. That to talk about just the weirdest situation. That's sort of outrageous that Hawaii is favored in that game. Is that right?
They're a 2-point favorite, so that would be like the first. Now that line may have moved since, but
they've had 4 losing seasons in a row, and they are favored over a power conference team. That's crazy.
Yeah, it'll be a good game, and both Hawaii under Timmy Chang, they've gotten a little bit better each year, but as I put in our betting preview, 0-6 against Power 4 opponents under Chang. So give Stanford a chance there, and it'll be interesting to see. That's a good late night game. It's like you don't have to be, with all due respect to both programs, you don't have to be like if you're doing something else, that's fine. But it's fun to have that game on.
No, it's a CBS game. Like,
correct.
CBS is giving it the prime time treatment, and then the other one to keep an eye on: Fresno State at Kansas at 6:30. Fox is giving it the national attention. Kansas 12.5-point favorite in that one. I would expect Lance Leipold and Jalen Daniels to get it done against Fresno State. No more Mikey Keene there, of course.
Right.
He's in Ann Arbor.
Right. And Kansas, so you're going to see E.J. Warner, who you'd be like, is that his son? Yes, it's Kurt Warner's son.
Yes, it is Kurt Warner's son.
And Jalen Daniels, who's played at Kansas for he's one of those guys where you're going to be like, man, that guy's still there. And, a big year for Kansas. They got a renovated stadium at Memorial Stadium. They're going to show that off. Both Kansas schools in action here. And I think Kansas will get off to a good start in that game. And then the last one we had was just off the radar a little bit. Sam Houston, Western Kentucky. That's a Conference USA game. Sam Houston, new coach. You'd be like, wait, that's Phil Longo. Yes, it is. So it allows you to get familiar. And then, of course, UNLV playing Idaho State. Yes, that's Dan Mullen.
Welcome back, Dan Mullen.
Yeah, and I'm excited about that. I think they're a team getting some Group of 5 buzz. They got Alex Orji, the former Michigan quarterback. They got Vontez Burfict, the former Bengals linebacker, on their staff. They are a who's who of that guy played for that school.
Big time. They have raided the transfer portal, and their talent is really on the rise. We'll see how it fits all together. If Dan Mullen can make the pieces work. But I talked to a few people actually in the Mountain West Conference, and they're saying without a doubt UNLV is the most talented team. We'll see if that translates by getting everybody fitting together. So
for sure.
We'll see. All right. So you wrote a story about the Heisman Trophy race this week at sportingnews.com, breaking down the list, breaking down the odds. Arch Manning, of course, is the leader. Plus 500 is our from Caesars is the betting odds for him. I wanted to go through like the top names and see what your biggest concern is with each guy, right? So Arch Manning, I think you say his biggest concern is this is his first time through the league as a starting quarterback. People are going to get more film on him, et cetera, et cetera. Is that, you agree with that?
So, yeah, well, here's a true story from last year before I even tell you about that. Like, I don't bet. I put a couple dollars down here and there, like on sports betting. Everybody does it, right? So I don't bet on the Heisman Trophy because I vote on it. And I think that's wrong to like profit off something that you actually have a direct impact on, right?
Sure.
And I was sitting there staring at Travis Hunter's odds last year thinking, man, it'd been nice to, I looked at it later and I'm like, man, it would have been nice to just throw down like $20 on that and win whatever he won. He was like 500 to 1 at the time or something. But so just a window into my soul there. But it's kind of how I feel about Arch is like, I think the betting odds are directly reflected of who he is. And the potential for him to have a monster season as Texas quarterback and win the Heisman, it's there. I just feel like this is a really tricky bet when you're trying to stand out among all those SEC quarterbacks. We'll talk about a couple of the others here in a minute. But, I think Arch, there's so much pressure on him to live up to expectations. But I was thinking, would he have a 3,200 yards, 28 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, Texas goes 10-2 or 9-3, makes the playoff, he's probably not winning the Heisman, even though that's an effective season. And then what he adds in the running game with that, how much of that he does. You and I both know that he has this really good scrambling ability and makes plays. And it's not Peyton, it's not Eli. He can run. And so I just think, I don't know if I would make that bet on Arch is what I'm going to tell you, is that I think I'd look at some of these other guys that are in situations where their numbers kind of tell the story and they end up being that guy that wins the Heisman. So my question for Arch is pretty basic, is like, he could make a really big Heisman statement in week 1 against Ohio State, or if they lose, he may not be able to win the Heisman just based off that one game.
Right. I think it's rare the preseason Heisman guy wins the Heisman. I don't have the numbers in front of me exactly, but Travis Hunter was not high on the list. Jaden Daniels certainly wasn't the leader coming out of summertime. So it would be a little bit of a break in form if Arch was able to win the Heisman this year. But I mean, you and I both like him. We have him first team All-America at Sporting News. So I love him. We'll see. And I can't wait for that week 1 game against Ohio State. Garrett Nussmeier is for LSU, the quarterback. He's second at plus 700. My question for Nussmeier is, can they win enough games?
Right. Well, I mean, he's not going to be able to do what Jaden Daniels did. Jaden Daniels, they lost games, but he ran for 1,000 yards.
Yeah.
I mean, and he was, the Alabama game, he had all the, he had that big game there. So yeah, I mean, if LSU goes to the playoff, wins 10 games, and he has over 4,000 yards and 30 touchdowns, he'll be that guy that can have a chance. I mean, obviously, we've seen Burrow and Daniels do it, but
he'll be that guy because he'll be the reason they did it. You know
right.
what I mean? And their defense is still has to prove itself.
Right. And then real quick with Stymie, he just pointed it out. First-year starter as a Heisman favorite is odd. Yeah, I mean, there's a stat that I've been pointing out all summer that, well, it's kind of the last 2 guys that were it's not really Heisman related. It's like the last 2 guys that were the number 1 pick in the NFL draft at quarterback and only had 1 year as a starter and won the Heisman. It was Cam, who got his number retired, and this week that's not going to go down that road. And then Kyler Murray, Oklahoma, who obviously had sat for a while. And so, yeah, I mean, you have to have that big year. We have seen Garrett do it. I just don't know, like with him, you're betting strictly on, like you said, they've got to win enough games and they could fade pretty quickly in the SEC. He could throw for 4,200 yards in the SEC and be the 3rd highest Heisman vote guy, if that makes sense, because he does throw picks too. And it is when they give us the Heisman sheet, it's always got the stats on it. Some people just look at the stats. Once you throw over 10 picks, you get in a little trouble.
Cade Klubnik, Clemson. He's the third best odds, plus 800 right now. My question with him is, if they lose to LSU in week 1, he's got an uphill battle because they don't have a ton of Heisman-worthy games or whatever you want to call it on the schedule. and he will be behind a few people. That's not a huge question. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think he has sort of the fewest questions. He's got a great receiving core. He has shown nice progress throughout his career. He's a third-year starter. You know, he might be the safest pick among the top three, or even the next two guys we're going to talk about, Lenore Sellers and Jeremiah Smith. Klubnik seems like the steady pick, the low-risk pick to me.
Yeah, and if this is a boring Heisman year, he could win it. And when I say a boring Heisman year, like we don't have the Travis Hunter story, or we don't have the Devontae Smith story, or the guy that kind of lightning bolt, which typically happens. You know what? One of the things I'm saying with Klubnik, though, is do you think he's better than Deshaun Watson? Because Watson didn't win it. He finished second. Do you think he's better than Trevor Lawrence? Lawrence was phenomenal. He finished second. Clemson's never had a Heisman winner. I do believe in that trend, too. Like you got, if you're going to be the school's first Heisman winner, you got to have a hell of a year. So that means
right. He's definitely not in their class yet.
Right. And we could probably, what you're getting at, and I kind of agree, is that Nussmeier Klubnik, this quarterback duel, you could argue it's a Heisman elimination game, which is weird. Like you could argue it's an NFL draft Nick game, right? Like the draft Nicks are going to want to watch this more than the people. But I think both of those guys are really interesting, and we'll see.
So two guys are at plus 1,000. Then we can kind of move on. But Lenore Sellers, South Carolina, again, same question I have with Nussmeier. How many losses can he afford to take to stay in the Heisman race at South Carolina? And then Jeremiah Smith, Ohio State wide receiver. We all know his talent is off the charts. He's going to get so much attention. And they've got two other talented receivers that should be able to take advantage of the gravity that the defense is going to, feel when Smith is on the field. And suddenly Smith isn't putting up the huge numbers, even though he's still the best player on the field.
Tim May pointed that out to me 2 years ago, and he's covered Ohio State forever. And, I think at the time we did a Jackson Smith and Jigba Heisman piece. They have to share. That's the problem. It's like Ohio State, the easiest thing to do, unfortunately, is probably just if those guys have a big year, your best bet is almost to give Julian Sayin the Heisman. Mac Jones ran into that a little bit with Devontae Smith, but Devontae Smith, his numbers were just so ridiculous we couldn't ignore it. He ran a punt back. He had, I think, was it 20 touchdowns, something like that. It was ridiculous. And Jeremiah Smith would have to have that. Now, the good news for him, and it's kind of what Marvin Harrison had when he was there, he's going to have the stages, right? He's going to have that Texas game. If he has monster games against Texas, Penn State, and Michigan, which, remember, Marvin Harrison had the big game against Penn State. And that was when the Maserati Marv thing happened with Gus Johnson. We all jumped on that bandwagon. We thought the Heisman was his. And then he didn't really have a big game against Michigan, right? Like that game's probably best remembered for Will Johnson jumping a route on him. And I think Jeremiah Smith, especially the Michigan game, if he goes out, because he's been talking a little bit about Michigan this summer, how much he hates them and that kind of thing. And if he goes out and lights them up, it would give him the path to that. Sellers, probably from the statistical standpoint, your best bet, because he's going to have big numbers. And something I pointed out, and I tried to make Devin Dampierre kind of a Heisman sleeper at Utah, because I did look this up over the last 15 years. Cam Newton, Johnny Manziel, Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, Jaden Daniels, all Heisman Trophy winners, all rushed for 1,000 yards. So if you rush for 1,000 yards as a quarterback and your passing numbers are good, that's what we've latched onto. Is when Jaden Daniels, remember what game was it, Bill, where he Florida or Ole Miss, he had like a 70-yard run. Yeah, and then we're like, okay, that's the stats. He's the best player on the field. It was easy to give him the Heisman then. And I think if you have a couple games like that, you can do it. And one last guy I want to mention, because we got some love for the running backs. Jeremiah Love, best running back in the country coming into the year. Super exciting. Couple things, though, you got to watch with him. Is he going to get enough carries? He's splitting with other guys. Reminds me in some ways not the same player, not a perfect comparison, but kind of like CJ Spiller. CJ Spiller was unreal at Clemson, but never got like a ton of carries. So are they going to give Love enough carries? Do you care to give a running back a Heisman? The last two guys to win a Heisman that were running back were Alabama guys. That were Derrick Henry and Mark Ingram. Then you got to go all the way back to Reggie Bush. You know, guys like Earl Campbell and Archie Griffin have to be so angry with that. It's like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, if Love wants to stay in it, he's got to have a big first 2 weeks.
Correct.
They got Miami and they got Texas A&M, probably the two biggest games on the season. If he goes for over 100 yards in both of those games, he can keep his name active as the schedule gets a little, less challenging and not as many primetime type of games or whatever. So for him, for a Heisman campaign, first 2 weeks are going to be very important. I love how you were talking about Devin Dampier, that can a nice transition into our ranking the transfer QBs. He was in your top 6. So let me go through your top 6. This again at sportingnews.com. The top 12 transfer QBs to keep an eye on this year. Number 1 was Carson Beck at Miami. 2, John Mateer, Oklahoma. 3, Nico Iamaleava from UCLA. We learned how to say his name last spring. 4, Mark Gronowski of Iowa. 5, Darian Mensah at Duke. And then Dampier at Utah. So I want to start at the top. Carson Beck, right? He was our number 1 Heisman candidate last year, our number 1 quarterback, and didn't live up to the billing. But we are not afraid to call him our number 1 transfer QB after that season. I'm a little worried about him. We don't know what his health is going to be like. They say he's fine. Has a big challenge against a very good Notre Dame defense to start the season. But you like him at number 1.
Yeah, and, if you want to put Mateer there, that's fine. Because
it's a little bit by default, right? That's what it felt like last year. It's like, I guess we got to put him number 1 preseason because there's nobody else that's logical. But I don't know if I fully believe in him.
Now he's got to carry it a little more maybe because, he is 24-3 as a starter. He's played in a lot of big games. He's got that experience. He looks comfortable. Miami should be pretty good. And here he comes into a huge game to start the season. Now, if you want to put Mateer there, that was the debate. I had Nico kind of 3, but between Mateer and Beck, it's like, okay, Mateer will have better numbers. Yeah, he runs the ball. He's another kind of Heisman sleeper there because of it. But Mateer's also making the jump from Washington State and their schedule to the SEC and that schedule. And then in week 2, it's not on top of it. You're playing a pretty nasty Michigan defense in week 2. So if he goes out and they both get their up close moment early, for Mateer going out against that Michigan D, they're going to come after him. They're pretty good. And for Beck, he's at least at home against that Notre Dame defense. And both are coming into new environment. Everything I heard about Beck, though, at ACC kickoff was super positive. And I know how that goes. You got to try to sift through all that and determine what's real. But, Mario had great things to say about him. Sounds like Shannon Dawson loves him. I just go back to this phrase Mario used. He said he marries what we want to do offensively with his skill set very well. So that tells me, they want the just kind of Cam Ward was really, he's not Cam Ward. Cam Ward was a credible improvised guy. I think with Beck, it's the ball's going to come out on schedule. There'll probably be some picks. Got a really good offensive line. It's my way of telling you, I don't know if I'm going to pick that upset next week, but I think it's going to be really tight between Notre Dame and Miami. And a big reason why is because Carson Beck's played in a lot of these games. So but the pressure is, can he beat that Notre Dame defense?
That's the big advantage Beck has over Mateer on paper's offensive line, at least until we see what Oklahoma looks like at this year. I do think Miami's offensive line is going to give him a better chance for success. Mateer, we don't know. I loved him at Washington State, and I think he's, supremely talented. But if he has to run for his life like the Oklahoma quarterbacks had to run for their life last year, there's not a lot you can do.
Right.
So number 3 on your list was Nico. Again, what does he have around him at UCLA? He probably had more at Tennessee. And the season was labeled, I would say, a slight disappointment, not a huge disappointment, but a slight disappointment for Nico. Even though they made the playoff, they had several games where they had 0 points at halftime, 2 or 3 in a row, I think, at one point. But, he's a talented guy. Hopefully he's got his head in a good mental space for UCLA. It was an ugly spring back and forth, what he wanted, what they wanted, et cetera, et cetera. Now that it's time to play some football, he's one I want to watch.
Right. Yeah. Nico, it's going to be really interesting to see that. And then, like you said, it's about who's got guys around them. That 3 through 6.
Mm-hmm.
If I had to pick, is it okay if I move down a little bit? Gronowski is the most interesting to me.
Yeah.
Out of 3 through 6, because Iowa hasn't been able to throw a forward pass for about 3 years. So I want to see if he can do that. Nico, I don't know if it was a disappointment last year, Bill. I think
their offense was just blah, and their best player was a running back.
Correct. And it lacked some of that explosiveness, and it was probably exposed in that Arkansas game. I remember early in the season we were talking about Tennessee, like he was I was guilty of this, that he was the difference maker in this unbelievable offense because they shredded some teams, and then they played good defenses, and that wasn't the case. So I'm interested to see Nico. Gronowski obviously played a ton of football, and then Mensah, who he's the mystery man to me. I'm guilty of not watching him enough.
100%.
So, and he gets the $8 million deal. I was starting to think about Duke. I was like, man, they won 9 games last year, and their quarterbacks played well. So does he fit into what they're going to do? And does he emerge? He was probably out of that top 6, and we talked about Dampier earlier, top 6, he was probably the hardest one to, gauge how he's going to do.
Dampier may just take off too. I mean, Utah has a history. They're due for a bounce back, I think. He might be the perfect guy. And like you said, he's a guy who could run for 1,000 yards.
Well, that first night, too, we're going to see Dampier and Nico on the same field. And for those of us who stay up late on Saturday nights, that's the game that I'm going to be watching late at night. Is UCLA.
They open against each other?
Yeah. It's going to be incredible. So UCLA, Utah, 2 5-7 teams. You forget about that, Bill, because that's like the 13th best game on week 1, and it's a good one.
Driving back from Clemson. Oh no!
Right. So that's going to be a lot of fun to see.
Very good. Okay. All right. Well, that was good. Let me before we get out of here, let's get back to the Trocchi trivia question. See if you can name the starting quarterback for the last 4 kind of premier week 0 game winners. 2024, who do you got?
I mean, that's easy. It was Haynes King last year.
Georgia Tech walked off Florida State 24-21 with a field goal in the last play of the game. King threw for 146 and ran for 64.
23 was Hartman.
Sam Hartman, Notre Dame debut, 251 yards and 4 touchdowns in a 42-3 blowout of poor Navy.
22 was, I'm blanking on that one.
Now it gets tough.
I don't got 22. I should. I'm going to be mad when you say it. It's the only one I don't have.
Do you have the game?
I mean, I know the game. It was Northwestern, Nebraska.
Okay.
And Northwestern won.
I'll give you a hint. He started his career at South Carolina, transferred to Northwestern.
Oh, okay. It was, I don't know his first name. Helinski.
Yes, Ryan Helinski.
That's it.
Threw for 314 yards and 2 TDs as Northwestern beat Nebraska 31-28.
What was his first name?
Ryan.
Yeah. Okay.
Only win of the season there for Northwestern. So, all right,
and then 2021. I have the last one because I remember we made jokes about it, and not about him, but about the game. Illinois beat Nebraska.
Yes.
Wouldn't have got that if you wouldn't have told me the game. And then Sidkowski, who was the quarterback.
Who was the starting quarterback?
Oh, Michigan guy.
Yep.
Peters. Sidkowski was the quarterback at the end of the game. That's all I remember.
Sidkowski came off the bench, threw 2 touchdowns to Illinois, beat Nebraska.
Peters.
Brandon Peters.
He played forever too. So
3 for 4 for 35 yards before he got hurt. and then Siatkowski came on to get the win. Peters spent 2 years at Michigan and 3 years at Illinois.
4 transfer quarterbacks.
I know.
I don't know if Siatkowski, he moved around too. So, yeah, I mean, in all of those games, I'll go back and look and tell our listeners later. Close. Like
3 of the 4 one-score games. Yep.
Yeah. So close. And I think we're going to get a close game on Saturday, which will be a lot of fun.
I think you're right. So, all right. Well, that was a lot of fun. Thank you to everyone for listening to the CFB Nation All-America podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And for those of you who joined us on our YouTube channel, we appreciate you. We appreciate your comments. Thank you to Irish Breakdown, your source for Notre Dame football information. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we will see you soon.